Romeo and Juliet, Act 1, Scene 3. That's what we're going to go over today. And we are introduced to a couple of new characters. We see Lady Capulet and the nurse, and we finally see Juliet, right? The play is called Romeo and Juliet. Where's she been? Here she is. Okay. The plot. Not a lot is going on, but yet it hints at a lot of bigger things. We find out Juliet's age, and we find out that Mom, Lady Capulet, wants Juliet to check out Paris at this big party coming up. Okay. Lady Capulet is an interesting character. She is not that close with her daughter, which to us seems kind of normal. We are at the age, well, you're at the age where we're trying to gain our freedom from our parents a little bit, and we're not as close to our parents as we used to, which is kind of normal. We see Lady Capulet trying to communicate to Juliet through the nurse. She's a woman of the times. She is a rich lady, and she has hired the nurse to help raise her daughter. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Lady Capulet wants the best for her daughter, and right now, the best is Paris. Okay. We see the nurse, and the nurse is talkative. She's a wet nurse. Okay. She's referred to as the nurse. She's called the nurse. She's written down as the nurse. She was a wet nurse, and we see this through her long rant when Lady Capulet asks her, how old is Juliet? Okay, she's 13. She's almost 14. And we get this long story of how she weaned Juliet. Now, the term wet nurse means that she physically nurses Juliet as an infant. When you are in wealthy society in Shakespeare's day, you hired another lady who had a child about the same time you did, and you would have that person nurse your child. You know, that person will wake up in the middle of the night, feed the baby, change diapers, and basically was a nanny to this baby so that the rich, wealthy mother wouldn't have to be bothered with these things. So as you can imagine, the child and the wet nurse probably gained a pretty strong attachment. We will see that between the nurse and Juliet. The nurse is a servant. She's lower class. Did I mention she's talkative? You see this, right? When she talks, it's like a whole page of just her rambling on, saying a lot of nothing, right? She could answer the question in 2 words. How old is Juliet? She's 14. Or she's 13. But she spends 2 pages telling little stories and anecdotes about what happened when she was being weaned. This is a very Shakespearean character. Shakespeare likes to have low-class characters be kind of ignorant and talkative in a lot of the plays. If you have me for English 2 next year, we will read The Merchant of Venice. It's a great play. And in there is a low-class character who's kind of a servant and more talkative than the nurse practically. What it all boils down to, though, is the nurse loves Juliet. And we see Juliet show up. When we see her, I am always struck by how polite she is, right? They call her into the room, and she shows up, and her first words are, Madam, what is your will? No, that's not right. Madam, I am here. Let me pause and check this. Okay, I looked it up. Her first words were, how now, who calls? So she said, who's calling me? The nurse is like, your mother's calling you. And she talks differently to her mother. And her first words to her mother is, Madam, I am here. What is your will? Mom, here I am. What would you like? Answer your parents that way when they call you. See what happens. They're going to be like, what happened to my child? Juliet is crazy polite, okay, to her mother. That's how she deals with mom. Juliet is 13 years old. She's a little bit younger than you. She doesn't know the ways of the world. And here, mom is talking to her about getting married. What do you think about Paris? What do you think about getting married to this guy? It's a dream I've never dreamed of. So, mom hits her with this out of the blue, and she's not ready for it. And then when mom asks her, what do you think about Paris's love? Can you, be entertained by this guy? Do you think you can marry him? And she is obedient. A look-alike of looking-liking move, right? I'll look to him. And if I like him, then I'll be moved and I'll go out with him and we'll go from there. She is cautious. She's just not going to jump right to him and say, yes, I'll marry him. It sounds great. So this is our introduction to Juliet. She is very cautious. Okay, she's very obedient. Pay attention to these character traits later. It's going to be interesting how Juliet changes a little bit. So we've got this big party coming up. What do you think is going to happen? Who all is going to be there? Right? We can grab that list that the servant read to Romeo and read all those names. They're going to be there. Tybalt will be there. Romeo's friend Mercutio will be there, who we'll see shortly. Paris is going to be there. Rosalind is going to be there. Juliet's going to be there. So we've got everybody in the play so far that's been mentioned or seen all in one place. What's going to happen? Think about that as we read the next couple of scenes. I'll see you tomorrow.